Yo, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy G here. Today we are going to learn how to build a grid view using SwiftUI. So without wasting time, let's fire back. So last time we learned how to build a list view. If you haven't checked that video, I recommend you to do so. But you can also pause and download the starter project from the GitHub link in the description below. Now that we have a project set up, let's continue. Inside our starter project, we have a model that represents our city. We are also getting dummy list of cities. Let's go back to our content view. Inside our content view, we are getting all the cities. The first thing that we want to do is to remove everything inside the navigation view and replace it with the text. I'll simply say hello view like this. Let's also remove this city cell. Now, by default, SwiftUI does not have a grid view component, but we can use a list for this. In order for us to display our cities as rows and columns, we need an algorithm that can chunk our cities into an array of arrays by the size that we want. Because this lesson is not specifically about algorithms, and as software engineers we don't necessarily have to reinvent all the wheels, let's quickly head over to Google and search for that algorithm. I find this one from Hacking with Swift to be the most efficient. I'll put a link in the description below so that you can also check it out. Let's head over back to our project and create a new group. I'll call this utils. Inside our utils groups, let's create a new file. Select Swift file and click next. I'll simply call it extensions and then click create. Inside our extension file, let's add a new extension that will extend the capabilities of an array class. We will then add a new function. We'll call this chunked. It takes an integer, which is the size that we want to step our array by. Then it returns an array of arrays. We will then call stride. What stride does, it lets you move from one value to another using an increment. So in this case, we move from 0 to the count of our array, stepping by the size. Then we can now say map. We can now just return an array. We then slice it. It takes the first item, which in this case is 0, and then takes the last item, depending on the current item size. So we'll say swift.min which is the first item plus size or count. Right, so this algorithm will help us to chunk a single array into an array of arrays. For example, here we have an array that holds a list of cities, and we want to convert it to an array that will also hold other arrays. So in this case, we have also an array that we have multiple arrays inside.
Now, the first thing that we need to do is to head over to our model and make it conform to identifiable. If a model conforms to identifiable, SwiftUI will automatically use its ID to uniquely identify it. We can now go to our content view. Inside the body, let's say let chunked cities equals to cities dot chart by the size. We want it to be chunked by 2, and then we can now return our navigation view. Inside our navigation view, let's cut this text and replace it with a list. So we will now run a for loop inside our list and say from 0 to chunked cities count, and then we can access the index in. We paste this text back again and simply call it columns and build our project. Hit the resume button. You will notice that we now have 3 columns. The next thing that we need to do is let's put a horizontal step so that it will represent our rows. Inside this horizontal step, we run another for. This time we say chunked cities, then we pass in the index, then we can access a single city in. Let's come here and display an image. So I'll say image, I'll then say city dot image URL, then for resizable, right? Let's build this. You can see that now we have our images displayed. Let's also give it a head of frame. Then we put height and pass in maybe 55. And if we build this again and hit the resume button, you will notice now we have columns and rows, and on our rows we are displaying 2 cities in each column. Right? I think we are getting somewhere. Now that we have our columns and rows, we can simply remove this text. The next thing that we want to do is let's extract this image into a separate subview so that our code is more readable. So hit command and then click, and then click extract subview. Then we can call it city cell view. Right. Inside here, our city cell view, let's say let city right. Then in here we simply pass our city. If we hit the resume button again, you'll see that nothing has changed, but our code is building. Right. Now we can now come here. Let's also put this image inside a vertical stack so that we can be able to also add other items. So for example, now we can add the city name and the country, but let's also add a horizontal stack. In fact, we need to add a vertical stack because we will display our city name and country vertically. So we add our vertical stack and then we can add the text. We can now say city name. Let's change the font for this. Say headline. let's also change the color, so foreground color. What we need to do is, let's just call primary. Let's copy this text and paste it again and change it to country, 6.country. Let's change the font to sub-headline, right? And then we can change the color of this to secondary, right? Now you see that we are displaying our city names and the country. One thing that we need to do is we need to move this vertical stack so that it aligns leading. So let's just align this one, the one on top, say alignment. Then we say dot leading. We don't need the space. Let's do the same thing for the vertical stack. Right. I think it's looking nice. It's looking nice. It's looking nice. The next thing that we want to do is we want to change the radius of our vertical stack. So we come here and say dot corner radius, and then we just put 5. We also need to add a shadow. So we can say shadow, then we say color. We can just put color dot gray. We give it an opacity of 0.6. Then the radius, we just say 5. We can remove Y and X. Right. So as you can see, we now have our cities displayed in a grid view, and it seems to be looking great. Let's cut our city cell and paste it above our previews. Let's add a background to our vertical stack. So I'll say background, I'll say color, we can say system background, so that it doesn't matter whether it's in dark mode or light mode, it will still give us the system background. Then we can also add corner radius, say 5, right? We can also add a shadow to it. We can now maybe just say color dot gray dot with opacity of 0.6. Let's give it the same corner radius. We probably don't need this, right? Let's also add a padding to our inner vertical stack that is holding our image and the text. So I'll say padding, and then say leading, say dot bottom, because we want it to give a padding at the bottom, and we want it to be 8. If you hit the resume button again, yeah, you can see now that our card is looking nice and we are displaying our image, our city.
The next thing that we want to do is when you click on each city, we want to be able to display the detail page, the city detail page. So if you might have noticed in the startup project, we already have a city detail view. We just need to first remove this navigation bar title and then go back to our content view Let's copy this vertical stack that is holding our city name and city country, and then paste it inside here. We also need to add alignment to this vertical stack. So I'll just align it leading. I don't need to specify the spacing. Let's change the title of our city name to a large title. We can also change the country to simply a headline, right? Let's go back to our content view. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is we need to do a tab gesture. I will have a separate lesson where I'll talk about gestures, but for now, let's say on tab. So as the name implies, when you tap, we need to do something, right? So first, let's say when we tap this, right, we need to present a model. So the way you present a model here in SwiftUI, you just need to put sheet, then you choose the one that says is presented. As you can see, it is expecting something called a binding object. I'll also have a separate lesson where we'll talk about binding objects and steps. For now, what we need to do is say state var, we say show model is equals to false, and then here we can now put our binding object. The way we do that is we say self, and then we put a $sign. I'll put a $sign, show model, and then for our content, what we need to do first is we need to call on dismiss so that we can set back our variable to false again. So on dismiss, first on check, we need to set this show model to true, and then on dismiss, we need to say show model is equals to false, right? It's complaining that we are not specifying the content, so this is the detail view that we want to show. So we'll simply say city detail view, and we pass in the city, right? Okay, let's say something. If we hit the resume button, you can see now that when you click on each item, we are now displaying a model. So that's it, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you have learned something today. If you like this video, please hit that like button. You can also leave comments in the comment section below. Till next time.